U.S. President Donald Trump saying the U.S. will slap a 35% tariff on imports on Canada effective August 1st. There would be an exemption for goods that comply with the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement.
Donald Trump says he'll impose 30% tariffs on imports from the European Union and Mexico starting next month.
Former President Trump is speaking out after being indicted on alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election. He's accusing the Biden Department of Justice of attempting to criminalize what he says is political speech.
The left-wing lunatics are trying very hard to bring back COVID lockdowns and mandates with all of their sudden. The left-wing lunatics are trying very hard to.
On August 1st, a new chapter in global trade begins, not with diplomacy, but with division. President Donald Trump has announced a sweeping 35% tariff on all Canadian imports, with similar 30% penalties aimed at the European Union and Mexico. The exemptions are narrow. The consequences are global. Within 72 hours, the fallout began. A $43 billion aircraft deal with Boeing was cancelled. The European Commission locked in $95 billion in retaliatory tariffs. Canada, once sidelined, stepped into new partnerships. What Trump called leverage has become a shockwave. YouTube is not the biggest fan of content like this, but we believe people deserve to hear the truth. If you agree, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us beat the algorithm and keep going. We really appreciate the support. By May 30th, talks with the European Union were declared dead. Hours later, Trump issued an executive order imposing a 50% tariff on all European imports: cars, electronics, food, metals. Global markets recoiled. European stocks dropped by 2%. A record-setting aircraft contract between Boeing and Ryanair fell apart, not because of performance, but because of politics. If fully enforced, Bloomberg estimates the ripple effect of these tariffs could exceed $2 trillion in global trade losses over the next decade. Retaliation from Europe was swift, but not loud. Quiet meetings, strategic adjustments, and one foundational decision: suspend Boeing's future deals. This goes beyond lost contracts. It hits credibility. Ryanair is now considering Chinese-made aircraft from Comac, a seismic shift in Western aviation. If they follow through, it would not just displace Boeing, it would weaken the FAA's authority and open the door for new standards written in Beijing, not Washington.
When it comes to arguments that prosecutors cannot prove Trump knew he was lying about the 2020 election results, here's what his former Attorney General Bill Barr had to say.
We are seeing the danger of over-reliance on the United States economically and also from a security perspective.
We're going to bring it from 25% to 50%, the tariffs on steel.
So as things stand, this is a break, not a breakup. But if Trump keeps this up, you never know.
The U.S. IEEPA tariffs were unlawful as well as unjustified.
I think you're going to see shipments from Canada to the United States completely stop.
The government welcomes yesterday's decision by the U.S. Court of International Trade, which is consistent with Canada's long-standing position.
So we, as a confident country with an ambitious plan, we look outwards. We look to Europe. We look to Asia. We look to new partners.
Meanwhile, Europe's countermeasures are designed to strike political nerve endings. Tariffs on Harley-Davidsons, peanut butter, blue jeans, iconic products tied to American swing states. The result? Harley's European sales plummeted. US agriculture took an even harder hit. Farm exports to the EU collapsed by $23 billion. Wisconsin-based dairy giant Land O'Lakes reported shipping disruptions within days. While Washington drew red lines, Canada opened green corridors. Under the CETA Trade Pact, Canada and the EU eliminated nearly all tariffs. European firms, once reliant on US supply, began shifting toward Quebec and Ontario. A €1.2 billion hydrogen deal was signed between Canadian and European firms. Clean tech exports surged by 41%. A new trade corridor was emerging, not through Washington, but around it. This is not a temporary pivot. It is a structural shift. In Brussels, policy planners are finalizing hydrogen, solar, and rare earth agreements with Canada. These are not reactionary moves. They are new blueprints. While Washington scales back climate funding, Canada aligns its standards with Europe, The EU's Repower initiative projects 60 billion euros in fossil fuel offsets by 2030. The pieces are falling into place, and they do not include the United States. Boeing's losses are only the beginning. If Comac enters the European market, it will trigger a certification shift, one that permanently reduces US regulatory influence in aviation. And it is not just aviation. Brussels has initiated 17 bilateral trade talks since 2023, with Africa, with Asia, with India. These deals do not use dollars. They bypass US settlement systems entirely. Instead, they offer market access in exchange for digital, environmental, and infrastructure alignment. The model is no longer competition, it is replacement. Airbus gained 3.7% in market value the day after Trump's tariffs. Canadian steel exports to the EU surged by 24%. 7 new EU trade deals are under fast-track negotiation. None include the United States. The Western alliance is not collapsing. It is being restructured. What the US framed as negotiation has become silent realignment. Every new contract signed without US involvement is a step away from American dominance. Ryanair's potential pivot to Chinese aircraft is not just a loss, it is a signal. Boeing once represented reliability. Now it represents risk. Europe is not threatening to decouple, it is doing it. In global supply chains, silence is not inaction, it is strategy. Every decision made to bypass US systems is a brick in a new economic architecture. Europe is re-engineering trade to insulate itself from American unpredictability. Trump expected tariffs to bring nations to the table. Instead, they are walking out of the room. For decades, US influence came from stability. But today, volatility is policy, trade war threats, sanction escalations, policy reversals. The result is a new question being asked in boardrooms across the globe. Is the US still worth the risk? Canada is answering that question with action. As the US alienates its allies, Canada signs long-term export deals. While Boeing loses aircraft contracts, Canadian rare earth firms gain European investment. While the US imposes tariffs on green tech, Canada negotiates standards. This is not a public relations campaign, it is trade strategy by design. Beneath the headlines, a new trade triangle is forming, linking Europe to Asia through Canada. Data standards, clean energy, and infrastructure partnerships are being stitched together. No tweets, no threats, just deals. Washington believed leverage would force loyalty. Instead, it triggered substitution. Trade flows are now being rerouted. Digital frameworks are being rewritten. Arbitration agreements are moving offshore. Allies are not retaliating, they are replacing. Europe's vision is not to weaken the United States, it is to no longer need it. What started as a policy dispute has become an economic reordering. Canada is not Washington's neighbor in this story, it is Washington's successor. The tariffs have triggered a deeper, longer-term shift in alliances. The Gulf states are aligning with Europe through clean hydrogen corridors. India has signed a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure and digital framework agreement that excludes US oversight. Japan is reorienting around digital standards that match the EU's regulatory frameworks, not America's. Even emerging economies like Vietnam and Brazil are gravitating toward new trade groupings that integrate environmental, labor, and digital policy into traditional market access. In this model, the United States is no longer the rule setter, it is the exception. As this realignment accelerates, Canada is playing a new role, connector. Through CETA, Canada offers Europe tariff-free entry into North America. Through CPTPP, it provides Asia a backdoor to markets the US left behind. In bilateral deals with India and the UK, Canada is emerging as the hinge between legacy and future systems. This is not just about products, it is about architecture, and Canada is now seen as a trusted pillar in a global system where trust is currency. Let us know what you think in the comments. And do not forget to subscribe to Auto News and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest political economic updates.